Hi everybody! Today, students, your digital scavenger hunt includes these 5 terms: alliteration, consonants, onomatopoeia, visual rhyme, and slant rhyme. All of these are sound techniques. Sound is something that's important in poetry. Certain sounds may bring up associations or connections. Repetition can create pattern. Breaking or changing the pattern draws attention to the point where that happens. It's a great way to find a shift when you're following the TP-Cast analysis structure. See if you can hear any of these techniques in the following poem, Edna St. Vincent Millay's Sonnet 30, which some of you chose as one of your examples earlier. Love is not all. It is not meat, nor drink, nor slumber, nor a roof against the rain, nor yet a floating spar to men that sink and rise and sink and rise and sink again. Love cannot fill the thickened lung with breath, nor clean the blood, nor set the fractured bone. Yet, many a man is making friends with death, even as I speak, for lack of love alone. It well may be that in a difficult hour, pinned down by pain and moaning for release, or nagged by want past resolution's power, I might be driven to sell your love for peace, or trade the memory of this night for food. It well may be. I do not think I would. So, this is a sonnet, which is hopefully getting easier to recognize based on the fact that it's 14 lines and has a regular rhyme scheme. This one is a Shakespearean sonnet, 3 quatrains and a couplet. In the first stanza, we see an example of visual rhyme with rain and again, which are spelled like they rhyme, but don't actually have matching sounds. And Millay was not British, so it's not a matter of it being meant as rain and again. It also helps that they're at the end of the 2nd and 4th lines, so we know that they're supposed to rhyme. It also follows the rhyme scheme for a Shakespearean sonnet: AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, GG. That last couplet at the end shows an example of slant rhyme with food and wood. They don't sound quite like a true rhyme, and they're not spelled like they rhyme either, but they sound pretty close. Plus, again, based on the structure, we know they're supposed to. Additionally, there's a pretty clear example of alliteration in the 3rd line of the 2nd stanza, with many a man is making friends with death. And the choice of what sound to use matters as well. You can kind of imagine someone shaking their head in sad resignation. What a shame. The next line has an example of consonants with lack of love alone. It's very similar to alliteration, but the repeated sound isn't always at the beginning of the word. You could also argue for alliteration in the first stanza, though it'd be a bit of a stretch. Part of it is based on the placement of the words. In the 2nd line, you have roof in the middle of the line and rain at the end. In the 3rd line, you have spar in the middle and sink at the end. So it's not that it's a lot of repetition, it's more that the placement of the sound emphasizes it. And then, in the last line of the stanza, you get a back and forth between those 2 same sounds, rise and sink and rise and sink. It gives that sense of someone drowning, clawing their way up to the surface, gasping for breath just as they're hit by another wave that sends them back under. And it happens again and again. I don't think the order is a coincidence either. The rhythm would have worked fine with sink and rise, but Millay chooses to put it the other way around, so that we end with sink. A bit grim, that. Honestly, the whole thing is kind of bleak. The narrator is trying to be practical, listing to the listener all the reasons you shouldn't put your trust in love, shouldn't rely on it. At the same time, we see that she's unsure of that practicality, that yet in the 2nd stanza is a shift to the opposing point. Still, in the 3rd stanza, she goes on to encourage her love to doubt her. I may be driven to sell your love for peace. But even after all that, the close is ambiguously hopeful. I do not think I would. The narrator wants to believe in love. She wants to believe that she won't disappoint or betray this person who loves her. But she's not actually confident enough to make that a promise. I think that's the reason that this poem has stayed so close to my heart for a long time. That sense of uncertainty goes well beyond romantic love and applies in many different situations, especially given how topsy-turvy the last year has been with the pandemic and protests across the nation and remote learning and so many changes. It's hard to make sense of anything. How can we make promises in such a precarious world? What if we can't keep the promises that we make? What if we're not strong enough, not patient enough, not persistent enough? What if we're just not good enough? I felt that way sometimes. And so it's really, really nice to know that somebody else has felt that way too. So much so that they made a poem out of that feeling and published it for the whole world. Sometimes we won't be good enough. And that sucks. But it's okay. Because even when we fail, when we break our promises or let down people who care about us, we still matter. We still have value. We're still worth it. Just like love is. Bye for now, everybody.